Welcome to the Trail and Ultra Running Training Podcast. My name is Will Frantz, and I'm here to help you improve your training so you can have more fun out on the trails. Welcome back to Trail and Ultra Running Training Podcast or Facebook group. If you are watching this and you would like to leave a rating or review, I'd really appreciate it, or arguably even better, just share it with someone else. All of those things tell the robot overlords that someone likes what I'm doing here, which allows more people to find it, which allows more people to hear free information about this lovely and kind of goofy sport that we do. So that would be awesome if you would do that if you haven't yet. So let's get into 3 ways that you can recover faster. And if you know me, this probably isn't going to be that big of a surprise, but it will be not the hack stuff that most people are looking at. It's going to be basics. 1, eat enough, both while training and otherwise. And this is one of the places where I struggle, right? I have a long history of not the healthiest dieting in my life, and as a result, I don't have normal hunger signals, so I kind of struggle to eat consistently throughout the day. So while I can put down a stupid amount of food at night to compensate for that in my day-to-day life or low training periods, I struggle more when it comes to big training volumes, like going into final stages of race prep, or when I was going into a big weekend for a tournament. It makes it hard when you don't eat well throughout the day, and then it gets to be 6 p.m. and you're just like, oh, I need a lot of food right now. It is tough to make up a full day's worth of calories when you're in a training cycle like that, so we probably need to plan a little better. And I think a lot of people are in this boat. Some people absolutely do this intentionally because there's a lot of crossover between some disordered eating and ultra running. And then a lot more people just do it accidentally because eating enough food for this sport takes a lot of time. And training takes a lot of time. So it is hard to find the time to do both of those things. And we really just need to do it anyway. I don't really have a better answer than that. There's things that we can make it easier. If you eat a fairly similar breakfast every morning, then make a ton of it in advance. Oatmeal reheats quite nicely, actually. Eggs don't take that long to cook. You can make little egg cups, those Starbucksy kind of things, except you can just do them in a muffin tin. They're more annoying to get out than the sous vide version, but that's fine. But whatever you need to do to get some proteins and carbs and fats and colorful vegetables in on a daily basis, then let's do that. Pack snacks like you're taking care of a child. You wouldn't send a 4-year-old away to daycare without any food and expect them to be happy and fine all day. We shouldn't do that for ourselves either. I realize that I work kind of a weird schedule, so if I can bring food, I slam it into my face in between clients. Did that yesterday. I brought food to the gym and shoveled it into my face between clients. Best thing for digestion? Probably not. Definitely didn't chew as much as I would like to, but it's one of those things where if we're going to take training seriously and you really care about your performance, you need to take your food seriously. It's not an option, it's a requirement. And same thing with fueling your runs. If you're going to go out for long runs or hard work or any of these things, you need to have the carbs in your system perform well. You just do. Different amounts for different people and different paces and speeds and whatever, but you need to have the energy to do the work. And if you don't have the energy, you're not going to work as hard because you won't be able to. And again, different amounts for different people, but be able to do it and then get in the recovery food afterwards. I personally do the shake route because I'm not that hungry after a run. So I slam a bunch of berries and a banana and some peanut butter and some protein powder and water into a blender thing and then blend it up. And happy day. It's a few hundred calories of very healthy things that allow me to recover from work. Now, this is not just an eat enough conversation. That is the first thing. as an athlete. So if we're moving into like race prep or the final weeks of race, and you just need a stupid amount of calories to recover from 12 hours of running every week, then I really don't care too much where you get that. Your body probably will, if we're going to be honest, and we'll get to that in a second. But really, calories are going to be the biggest thing here. Eat enough food, and your body will work out most of the rest of it. There's a reason that like CrossFit athletes eat nothing but like burgers and pizzas on a weekend, because it's really hard when you're doing that much work to put in 5,000 calories in the rest of the day. So eat what you need to eat to make it happen if we're in race prep, and then we can like take a few weeks off afterwards and like reset your system and get back to space. But I feel like we're in this weird thing in nutrition for running in general, but especially in the ultra running space, because whenever we talk to ultra runners, like it's just all the running stuff, just more, because it's farther and that's what our brains do. So this is part of a longer rant that I'm probably going to do in the next week and a half. But very simply, it doesn't either need to be I eat 1,200 calories of salad or I eat 4,000 calories of burgers and French fries. I think we end up in this space where people like Alberto Salazar were so harmful for so long about people's weight and dietary needs that now we don't want to get into the conversation at all, so we just tell people to eat whatever they need to eat to get in the food. I told you that 2 seconds ago, which certain times of training cycle, very relevant. But most of the time, vegetables are still good for you. And I think there is a good middle ground here. You can eat a burger and also eat a salad. You can need to eat 3,500 calories and not require yourself to get all of that from salad. If you ate nothing but like spinach salads with some chicken and a little bit of quinoa, you'd probably never leave the toilet if you're trying to eat 3,500 calories. So we should eat a like wide range of foods with like protein and vegetables and fruits and grains and whatever. And then if you need to get in more food than is like really reasonable for you to get in with a whole food diet, then start to do some sugar and maybe eat a donut, because if you're eating 3,500 calories, a 200 calorie donut just isn't that big of a drop in the pond, right? So there is a middle ground with nutrition that I believe is the right path. Like we don't need to fear the donut, eat the donut, it's fine. That does not make broccoli bad for you, right? So eat some vegetables, eat some fruit, also have the food you need. Those two things are not conflicting messages. It's just hard. But if you're burning or using as much food as we are when training for an ultra, it's fine. Eat the donut. Also maybe eat a salad. Next thing we can do of the 3 to recover faster is train appropriately. Like the concerns here are different for different people, but on one hand, don't treat every run like a time trial. This tends to be more relevant for newer runners. I see this a lot in marathoners or like 5Kers where it's like easy volume just isn't their favorite thing. I actually was having a conversation about this with someone who does OCR the other day. Like it's just, we need to get a good amount of low and slow volume in here. It's not just about impact to your bones and joints, whatever. It is also about progress to your aerobic system. I like it now, very honestly. For years, I really hated Zone 2 style work because I found it really boring. Trails helped that. I still don't really like a Zone 2 city run. It's just not really my jam. But if I can get onto trails or into a park or something like that, then happy day. But yes, one of the reasons we push this like low and slow work is because we need to aggregate a ton of volume. And if you're aggregating a ton of volume and at a really high speed, it's a lot of impact and a lot of work on the joints. So this is where one of the reasons that we find this like 80-20 space where we are doing so much low and slow work, because it is less impact and less damage on your system and bones and muscles and whatever. It's not just about that. It's also about progress to your aerobic system. The biggest stimulus to your like aerobic base system comes from this like low and slow work where you could have a conversation that you probably shouldn't want to be having, but it'd be fine. And you could speak in mostly full paragraphs with some like inserted breathing. You couldn't sing very well, but you could have that talk, like that zone 2 space that I've talked about on here repeatedly, right? That training is valuable for everyone, really. We even see some of this training in sprinters, obviously to a lower degree, but everything from like a 5K up, this training is super valuable. It's how you build your aerobic system. So we can't really get around that. Now, if you're just, not running a ton, like if you're running 10, 15 miles a week, I would love to tell you to do easy work, but at that point, it probably doesn't matter as much as long as your bones are able to take it. But for those of us like trying to aggregate more volume and build more, it really starts to matter a lot because this is where we're going to get that big benefit. And I only say it doesn't matter for lower volume. It's just because, like, keep it fun. Like, if you're only running 10 miles a week, maybe enjoy those runs, right? If you love just slamming out zone 3 runs and don't care about getting a ton better, then it doesn't matter as much. But if we're really trying to aggregate volume and make improvements, then this aerobic work is very important beyond just the, like, protection it gives us from a bones, muscles, joints, tendons perspective, right? Another thing. Don't turn your 1 hour run into a 2 hour run or your like 4 hour run into a 12-hour 50 miler on a whim just because you're anxious and you like don't think that you're going to get across the finish line of your 100. Yeah, someone did that once, and there was a moment I knew our coaching relationship would probably not work out. So like if we are looking at your training, we need to hit the volume you need to hit. You don't need a ton more. And if you are looking to do an hour run, more is not necessarily better. Like, yes, we're looking to aggregate a bunch of volume over time. It does not mean that you need to hit this like weird magical number. I've had people talk to me about getting 100-mile weeks, and they thought it'd be the like make or break thing to help them hit whatever time in their marathon. And it doesn't matter. The quality of your training and the overall like aggregate volume is what's going to matter. This single run idea that we like put so much on, like how long does my longest run need to be? It doesn't matter. Like, yes, it would be good to know if you're trying to run for 12 hours, that you could probably run for 6. That'd be a good idea. Yes, it would be good that if you're going to run a 100-miler, like ideally we would give you either like this big weekend or a 50-miler or a 100K, or just like put a sane amount of volume to make sure you can handle it. But you don't need to do that. And you certainly don't need to do that if you're like struggling with injuries, or if you just like didn't plan well enough that you have 6 weeks until your race and you're like, well, now I need to run a 50-miler because if I don't do that, I'm not going to finish 100. No, at this point, like you are probably not going to be in great shape anyway because you're injured and you haven't been training. So let's just do what we need to do and see if the race is still even a reasonable idea. But you don't need to like turn into these big runs on a whim just because we're anxious. I should also like try and avoid adding a ton of extra activities like snowboarding and rock climbing and surfing and jiu-jitsu and all these things that we love to do. There's nothing wrong with these things, but they increase your demand for calories. And if you do a lot of them, you just need to do less running. And at some point, if you have big running goals, you need to do less of the other stuff so you can do more of the running. This is why I'm a big fan of the seasons approach, because I do have a wide variety of interests, right? Be it lifting or climbing or whatever have you. And if I were running all year round, trying to get better all year round, I wouldn't get to do these other things I love because it just wouldn't fit. So having these seasons where I'm focused a little more on climbing or a little more on jiu-jitsu or whatever it may be, something I'm looking to instill back in my life, is important to me. And then when the running stuff really comes up, then we can really crank the training on the running. Like, that's where I am now. I'm starting to like really take the run training a little more seriously. So some of the other stuff is going to back off, namely the lifting. Like, the lifting is not going to be as big of a priority because that was the winter season. Get really strong, right? And these things just need to flow in and out a bit because you can only take so much stress. And yes, I realize we love all these things, and stress has become this like only mental stress concept, but it's actually very important to realize that yes, your stress relief is running, but it's also stress on the body. Like, definitionally, it's stress on the body. So you need to be able to recover from it. And then when we look at some of these other things as far as like appropriate training, like don't go to failure in the gym. It's just not necessary. Like, you don't need to lift that heavy to create adaptations unless you're trying to be like a power lifter or a bodybuilder or whatever. If those things are true, then yeah, we probably need to go to failure on a fairly regular basis because you need to lift really heavy weights. And by regular basis, I don't even mean weekly. It's just like, as a runner who's trying to get stronger to run better and like have a healthy long-term life, you literally never need to lift to failure ever to get stronger and make progress. It's just never a thing. The weight never needs to be in concern of not coming up off the ground, or like, we can always leave 1 to 2 reps in the tank. And sure, if you're really new at this, maybe you go to failure a couple times to learn what that feels like, because I've trained many people who are like really new to lifting, and they just didn't know what an 8 out of 10 felt like because they've never done it before. And it sucks far before you hit that point, right? So like, that's kind of the idea. But we absolutely don't need to lift a weight that, like, you never need to fail on a squat. You certainly never need to fail on a bench press. That's how you get trapped and can't breathe. Like, it's silly. So take care of yourself in the gym, work hard, go to the point where the weight slows down a good amount and it feels really difficult, but you can maintain good form. And don't go past that, and you'll keep making progress and you won't have as much risk of injury, right? We're trying to create, in all training things, we're trying to create the most adaptation with the least amount of effort. That's how you make the most progress, because it allows you more time to recover. It allows you more time to actually create that adaptation. It allows you more time to do the other things that matter, like our third thing, sleep. Like, a lot of people say that they don't have enough time to sleep. And for some people, I am sure that's true. But most of us are just bad at prioritization and time management. Pull up your phone and see your screen time statistics and see what it says. And let's see if you still don't have enough time to sleep. For me, I do. I don't know what mine are. I don't need to look at them to know that I spend too much time on my phone. It's part of my job, and I get distracted because, that's what these things do, and I'm not very good at controlling that. And we just need to recognize that you don't adapt during training. You adapt during recovery. And if you don't sleep, you cannot recover well. It's not a willpower thing. It's not an effort thing. It's not an I'll sleep when I'm dead thing. Like I said, for a very long time, it is a time where you make essential hormones like human growth hormone, HGH, and testosterone. And if you want your muscles to repair, we need these hormones, so you need to sleep. Very honestly, if you are struggling to get enough sleep and you always feel run down and you always feel tired and you never feel rested, then we need to train less, because you're just training yourself into a hole and you're not actually getting better. It might make you feel good, that like mentally good, it might give you some solace that you put in a 12-hour training week or whatever to get you ready for your race. But if you have just been getting slower and more tired and seeing your progress get worse, and we're seeing your whatever metrics you use to judge progress, right? Normal graded pace, grade adjusted pace, any of these things, right? If we are seeing all of these things, fall off week after week or take a nosedive and your sleep has been 5 hours a night, you need to train less if you actually want to make progress, because you're just training yourself to become worse, right? So sleep is important. And if you need to remove an hour or two from your training week so that we can buy you a little more time so that you can get a collective hour or two more of sleep, then we need to do that. Like, when it comes to recovery, food, training appropriately in the first place, and sleep are the things that we need to prioritize. They are like the biggest rocks when it comes to all this stuff. The amount of people that ask me about everything from like peptides to fasting to special diets to recovery shoes to whatever, cryo, is endless. Like, I get these questions all the time. Somebody asked me about peptide like 2 weeks ago, BPC 157, which is this big thing in the training space about fixing tendons and joints and whatever. And like, this is not a thing that most of us need to be doing, because I just don't sleep enough because I get lost on Instagram, right? Like, this is a silly thing for me to pursue. None of this stuff, like the silly stuff, matters when you're doing the basics. And I call it silly stuff. All of these things can do something in theory, but most of it, like at most, makes like a 1% difference. Whereas like the three things above make 99% of the other difference. So if you need 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night and you're getting 5, you're dropping like that portion of your recovery by like 30 to 40% every day. And that's probably going to have some consequences that you're not going to fix with recovery shoes, right? Like, we just are overlooking the big rocks for like some grains of sand. And we see the same ideas for like food and training. And we don't prioritize what we need to prioritize. We need to eat enough food. We need to train appropriately in the first place, and we need to sleep. And if we do that stuff, and we're very on point with that stuff, and things are still not going well, this is when we can look into some other things and see what might be going on. There are a lot of people, especially women, who are low on iron in the running community for very good reason. Like, foot strike hemolysis bursts your blood cells, and you end up with more blood in your bloodstream, and then you get rid of it, especially if you have, like, if you're female and you menstruate monthly, then you lose it that way, and we just end up with like low iron levels. But you wouldn't know if that's your problem unless you get a blood test, and you won't know if the blood test is justified if you're sleeping 4 hours a night, not eating enough food, and like training like a crazy person, right? We don't even know if that's a route we need to pursue. That said, get an iron test. It costs like $20. They're really good. You should probably get one anyway. But it's an example of something where we don't even need to know. We don't even know what is the other stuff that might be pursuing, because we're not doing the basics well enough to justify some of these things. So sleep, food, train appropriately. If you do these things, then we can start to talk about all the like red lights and cryos and fancy shoes that you want. But until then, take like 5 seconds to prioritize those things, and that's a much better start. Hope you have a good rest of your day. I'll be back later this week with another one. Thank you for listening to the Trail and Ultra Running Training Podcast. Honestly, I'm still surprised and honored that anybody wants to hear what I have to say, so thank you. To be clear, not a doctor, nor a registered dietitian, or any other kind of medical professional. I'm a personal trainer, a nutrition coach, and a running coach, and I have a passion for training trail runners. You should always speak with a qualified medical professional before making any changes to your training or nutrition program. If you enjoyed the podcast or found it helpful, please take a second to leave a rating or review. I'd really appreciate it. Or you could just share it with someone for whom you think it might be helpful. I make these kinds of things in order to provide more quality, free resources to people, so the more people who hear it, the better. If you want more of this information, please head to the Trail and Ultra Running Training group on Facebook, where we discuss all aspects of training so you can have more fun doing the sport that you love. Thank you again for listening.